contest, CQ contest, Whiskey 3, Mike, India, Echo, call.
November 9, Bravo, Alpha, Tango. November 9, Bravo, Alpha, Tango. 3 Alpha, Illinois.
K0 station, go ahead.
0 station.
Well, we're back, and once again, we're here for the Chicago Suburban Radio Association's Field Day, and with me is President Ed, and now your full name is, sir?
Ed Schumacher, formerly of Berwyn, well, many years in Berwyn, an old Morton West grad. That's where I got into radio, picked it up in scouting, and by that time it was almost time to start high school, so I knew Morton West had a radio club, an electronics shop, and 4 years of it. So it was great. That's where I started.
Oh, fantastic. And now we mentioned that this is a field day. We mentioned our voiceovers, and for years and years this is a emergency preparedness exercise. But tell our viewers that are learning about field day for the first time, what does that mean, emergency preparedness, and what is field day?
Okay, well, the concept began back in the 30s. The American Radio Relay League decided to hold an annual event that would test amateur operators' ability to take their equipment out to impromptu locations and be able to set up an effective station. Because by that time, hams were already putting radios into cars, airplanes, on their boats, and dragging them out and testing operations from other places. So they made a formal activity out of it. And it's really not a contest in the same vein as a lot of our other operating events. This one, the focus is supposed to be on testing out different equipment, antennas, shelters, whatever you need to bring along. And of course, the weather here in Chicago always cooperates, and we get different weather every year to try out how well we can hold on and stay in one place and operate.
Fantastic. So as we were mentioning that this is all about emergency preparedness, and we mentioned this is, and now you've got, first of all, this is a pretty awesome radio, Ed, I have to say here, and tell us a little bit about what you were doing exactly.
Okay, I brought out my top line radio this year just to demonstrate that I'm not afraid to bring a good radio out in the field because they're made to work there. Two, that when you have a better quality receiver, that you can tough it out through worse conditions on the radio. Today, for some reason, we have a very high noise level here, almost like ignition noise. And I can get rid of almost all of it with this receiver here and still copy most of the stations very effectively out there. Also, I just got it back from the shop, and I'm going to give it a real tough test to make sure that it does work. So when I call the folks back in Tennessee, I can tell them, your radio is doing well. It survived. But we are working one of the lower frequency bands right now, which normally at this time of year does hear more noise. But it's also a very good band for making contacts from east to west coast, especially overnight. I expect by the time the sun goes down tonight that our distance is going to really start stretching out, particularly to the west.
Oh, fantastic. We want to let our audience know that now you're working on all power as far as off generators, and the idea is to be able to be self-reliant when a tornado or a hurricane happens. Then you, unlike the internet, when that goes out, you guys are still going on. You're still communicating.
Exactly, and really this year my generator got a pre-field day workout because everyone knows that we've had the big storms through here the last few weeks, and the other day I had to run my generator all night to help my neighbors keep their sump pumps from overflowing. So the generator got checked out in advance this year and actually clocked about 12 hours of operating time, keeping my neighbors from getting flooded basements.
Okay, thanks so much. Any final thoughts or anything else we should know maybe about the CSRA? You guys have meetings and you welcome guests. And
we sure do. We meet in Westchester at the Grace Lutheran Church in Westchester. CSRA is the oldest continuous running radio club in Illinois. First official meeting was held we celebrated the 85th anniversary last month, and it was held in Berwyn, I believe, in 1925. The original meeting to found the club was held in 1924, right around Thanksgiving time. So we sort of did a double anniversary the last few months, celebrated the founding and then the first official meeting. And CSRA early on got involved with Field Day. It's our annual main event, and as long as I've known the club, Field Day has been the big thing we do. And of course, this sort of falls in line for me now because I also do volunteer work with Salvation Army's ham radio group, and got connected up with them back at the Plainfield Tornado. And finally this month I became the National Net Director for the Salvation Army ham operators. And we activate our nets when hurricanes come in or big earthquakes or things like that have a sustained impact. Our net goes on the air using this same equipment, these same type antennas, and we relay traffic in and out of places like Haiti, New Orleans after Katrina. I was picking up messages from hams that were stranded in New Orleans and making phone calls to their relatives for them. Ham radio still does that. It hasn't gone away, and it never will.
And now we're back, and I'm now with Marty. Now, Marty, you're a member of the CSRA then, or?
Yes, that's correct. I am a member,
And what we want to talk about with you, Marty, is that you've had the pleasure and honor of being a ham since 1863, and I think our audience is wondering what has changed as far as technology. We see you guys are on computers now, but I mean, what do you feel has changed as far as just the whole essence of ham radio and amateur radio?
When I started out in ham radio, I didn't have a lot of money at first, so I bought some used equipment, and most of my operating was with Morse code. In fact, I would say through high school and even early college, probably about 90% of my operating was with the Morse code, a little bit with voice, what they called AM operating. And there was a trend at my time in terms of voice that people were getting on a single sideband. And of course, you could get out a lot further through that mode of communication. But then I got away from the hobby, went off to school, and of course didn't have the money either to upgrade my station. But when I got back into it years ago, I could see the change that had taken place. Just in terms of digital technology, even the use of the internet. In terms of how hams communicate now, some do with digital technology called PSK31, although it does go back to RTTY, but now it's even used more extensively. And I would say also that through the years, you could see stations hooked up to a laptop computer, for instance, and even communicate through there for emergency communications. So the internet has been a factor. There are also hams that communicate through the internet in what's called Echolink. So you could be at your home station, and if you have an internet connection, you could talk to hams throughout the world. And there's also other aspects to IRLP, which also is a way of connecting through the internet to reach out further. And now we also have what's called D-Star communications, which is digital communications. So there's more that's come into ham radio through our technology. But I guess I still like, in some ways, the old-fashioned Morse code communication and just by voice.